I hope y'all are embarrassed by what this man about to say.
Ladies, this one is for you. So we have thousands of you in our inbox and you're all looking for white men. Well, I'm going to tell you, don't date a white man just for status. A white man is not going to change your life. We are just the same as a black guy. A white man can be broke. A white guy can cheat. A white man can have a wife and pretend he is not married.
Hello?
So he can have another girlfriend. So we are exactly the same as the black race. So please do not come in my inbox saying you just want a white guy because you think your life will change just by dating this white guy. It won't.
It
A
won't.
lot of white guys are broke. A lot of white guys are cheaters. So this is what I've come on here to say today, to you ladies especially, because a lot of you are in our inbox. And your life will not change just by dating a white guy. Thank you. Take care.
The fact that this white man felt so comfortable to get online and make this video to tell y'all desperate Debbies to get out of white men's inbox, get out they comments, they not finna elevate your life, they not finna be no better than a black man. Y'all should be ashamed of yourselves. If you feel like white men are better than black men, if you've ever said, I'm about to start dating outside of my race, you don't get to celebrate Black History Month no more. You're done, okay? What's today? The 10th? You're done. You're done. You ain't even get halfway through. Y'all should genuinely be ashamed. If you are going behind, chasing behind pink meat, you need to be ashamed. Okay? And you don't get to celebrate Black History Month no more because I said so. You're done.
We are in 2026, and I am about tired of you bald-headed hoes getting on this here internet to try to tell us women what black men can't do and won't do, okay? Just because you sucked a couple bad dicks in your life does not mean that the whole group of black men are bad men. I find it very funny that women like to judge black men as a group, but when it comes to women, we want to be judged individually. Y'all get on this here app to uplift a race, but a lot of y'all can't even show the Carfax of these men that are approaching you. Show me the Carfax of the Davids and the Toms that are approaching y'all. Y'all can't because y'all are not being approached. It's just the same old sorry bullshit line that y'all want to say about black men. All y'all do is give y'all grievances and y'all problems on black men. And let me tell you something. If you keep experiencing the same issues with a man, maybe it's you. Maybe it's not the man. Maybe it's you. I'm so tired of this conversation. Like, it's so fucking annoying. And another thing, since we're already on the topic, let's also address the elephant in the room. Black men are still marrying at a higher rate than black women. I promise you, women, all this, I won't date a black man, I don't want to be with a black man, all this bullshit that y'all want to throw out, they're still being married at a higher rate than you guys. So let me understand this. If you guys are not interested in black men and you guys don't want to date black men, as you say, why are you still not being married? Why are you guys still not getting married? Make that make sense. I promise you, black men are the least of y'all's worries and issues. I promise you that.
All right, Shalom. I want to start out by giving praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. I'd like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who I learned this truth from. And I'd like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. And today, it's just going to be, a video based off of a couple clips that I've seen where, you have the infamous nigga woman, and her madness. One clip where you have one woman, pretty much, getting on other black women, about how they run to, the oppressor, the so-called white man, Esau, Edom, thinking that they're going to get a better life when, you had the one Edomite pretty much say, like, they're no better than us, which, we are better than them. But he's saying that they're no better than us because, again, us as men in general, men have, the desire and ability to deal with more than one woman. What they call cheating in this society is not cheating, that's not adultery, as long as, whatever woman, that man is dealing with that doesn't have a man, then that's not adultery. But again, a lot of our women run to them thinking that, they're going to get a better life or they're going to be, their status is going to go up or something when, that's really not the case. And really, it ends bad for them anyway. So I'm just going to bring out a few scriptures. Lord willing, this lesson is edifying and straight to the point. And that's what I'm going to entitle this. She that is my enemy. Because right now, as it stands, those of our women, that haven't been awakened to this truth, that know that they're Israelites and aren't, using this to try to teach other men or using it to do witchcraft, just the women, those of our women, primarily the so-called black women, those that don't have this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, they're not right. They're our enemies, because again, the black woman has single-handedly destroyed, her community. She's destroyed her own nation by, it's numerous things that, she has done. One of the main things being, once they got the welfare system, once they started that when back in the, the 1960s, or if it started before that, Slovakia, but once they started that, offering government assistance to our women, what happened? They had to kick the man out of the house, because I did a video, probably a couple of weeks ago where you had, a woman that said she had, over, 100 grandchildren, right? And then they're celebrating her, but you didn't see, the grandfather anywhere. They didn't even make mention of him, whatsoever, and, the women of our nation have an evil eye toward us, which I'll actually grab that first before I grab that Micah. This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28. In verse 56, it says, "The tender and delicate woman among you, which would not adventure to set the sole of her foot upon the ground, for delicateness and tenderness, her eye shall be evil toward her husband." It's like here, her eye shall be evil toward the husband of her bosom, and toward her son, and toward her daughter. And that's the main point, is that, the women of our nation are going to have an evil eye toward us, right? Which we're going to finish verse 57. It says, "And toward her young one that cometh out from between her feet, and toward her children which she shall bear, for she shall eat them for one of all things, secretly in the siege and straitness, wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee in thy gates." And, going into cannibalism, because again, those of our people during the siege of Jerusalem, in the 70 AD, those that didn't flee, out of Jerusalem, they were, excuse me, Slovakia, they were starved out, they didn't have any food left. So what? They had to resort to cannibalism, and a lot of women, ate their own children, which that very same thing is going to play out again in this current time that we're in, where we're going to see people, commit cannibalism, but sticking to the main point is that, she is going to have an evil eye toward her husband. And again, the Israelite woman, primarily the so-called Negro woman, the Judite woman, those that aren't in the truth, they hate us. You don't have to do anything wrong to them. They just, again, this is how we're the biblical Israelites, based off of the curses that we suffer from, man. And this is just one of many, our own women hating us, and you even had the video, which again, that one isn't new either, but you had those two, black women join a racist clubhouse. This is not funny, but at the same time, man, it just is laughable, because it just shows you how much hatred they have toward us, But you had two black women join, a racist clubhouse, meeting asking, you know, Klan members to unalive black men, which, you know, is just you're running to your oppressor. You don't understand that if the men of your nation die and are wiped out, then guess what? There's no more you. You're no longer, you will no longer exist. You'll cease to exist if you take your men out, you know, which is what's going to happen to the nation of Edom as a whole, you know, men and women, but primarily what the men, you know, are going to be taken out, because that's how you keep a lineage going through the man, right? But these women nowadays, man, you know, especially the black women, you know, they hate the men of their own nation. They hate black men, you know, and if they have children by him, you know, they hate them too. As I just read, man, she has an evil eye toward her husband and toward her children, man. And this is just the reality of the world we live in, you know, where this is one of the many things we have to suffer, being hated by our own women, you know, which right now, those of us that are in the know, we know we're not really sweating it, because again, we know that, you know, those of them that choose to deal with the repressed, they'll slack you. A little excited, but those of them that choose to go and deal with the oppressor, that choose to go and, you know, deal with Esau, you know, the devil, by all means, go right ahead, you know, because at the end of the day, that's really the trade-off. You know, Esau has our women, but guess what? His women are flocking to us. So it's okay, because we're going to get our women back, you know, in the kingdom, and they're going to be righteous. They're going to be in their right mind. So that's why those of us that are in the know, we're not really sweating, you know, the majority of our women right now, man, you know, because again, they aren't right. And then most of them are going to perish in these last days, right? So let's get back to that Micah chapter 7 and verse 10. It says, then she that is mine enemy shall see it, and shame shall cover her, which said unto me, where is the Lord thy power? Mine eyes shall behold her. Now shall she be trodden down as the mire of the streets. And right, you know, she that is my enemy. Because again, you even have certain black women, you know, that'll make fun of us, you know, us men that are in this truth, you know, that go out on the streets, you know, preaching and teaching, and they'll see us, you know, and get to talking shit, you know. Oh, well, where's your God, you know? And this is what they do, you know. The elder Manata Zakba, he does videos, you know, concerning those of our people that come up against the Israelites. You know, some of them are paid, you know, to do it. You can tell just by what they're saying, because a lot of it is BS. But what a lot of these women don't truly have faith. They don't believe, you know. But what they mock us. Oh, where's your God? You know. But what it says, she shall see. You're gonna see it, man. You know, this thing of ours, as the Apostle Bar says, is like, it's true. You know, you don't see what we see. You're nearsighted, we're farsighted. We can see the kingdom coming. We can see our Lord coming back. You know, you don't believe it because, again, our people have been so downtrodden and beaten down and oppressed. They believe that we're going to be here forever, which is why, you know, you have them. And when I say them, the women flocking to, you know, Esau. And even the northern kingdom women do it. You know, you flock to him too, you know, not understanding that that man really he hates you, you know. Excuse me, Slakia. And there's been plenty of cases where you had so-called black women getting with so-called white men, and what? That white man ends up taking her out. You know, had the video where you had, you know, that Edomite man, he was driving his car. He was telling this, you know, this Negro woman, he said, I'll kill you. I'll kill you, then I'll kill myself. Like I said, I don't give a F about you or myself, you know? And that's the nature of these people, the nature of those men in particular. You know, you hate us, but you'll go and deal with them, you know? And then you'll also have a lot of black women that'll talk shit when they see, you know, so-called black men give a white women when it's not the same thing. You know, if we get with them, they're just concubines. You, on the other hand, you're a concubine to them. You don't understand that you're helping bring forth terrorists, man. And I think it was last week, 2 different black women that were with white men walked past the camp, with their terror children. And that's the crazy thing, man, because again, they look just like Israelites, but what? They're not. Why? Because their father is an Edomite. They had the light brown skin, the curly hair, but what, man? Those were not Israelite children. They were tares, And again, I get it that even though she isn't the truth, she isn't in the truth. That first clip, I get that sister critic because you said you should be ashamed of yourself. And a lot of you that are dealing with the enemy, you should be ashamed of yourself, because most of you hate yourselves, man. Because any woman that thinks getting, I'm trying to phrase this right, but any Israelite woman that thinks getting with an Edomite man is going to change your life, it's not, man. It's not. You're still an Israelite. You're still going to suffer the curses. It doesn't matter. You're just better off dealing with it, just like we do, just like the men. Yeah, it sucks, but at the same time, our captivity is almost up, man. The only thing we have to do is wait for our Lord to come back and deliver us. But again, a lot of you can't wait, And again, a lot of you do have self-hatred. You hate yourselves. You hate being dark-skinned. You hate having, curly hair, which Israelites as a whole, we have very good hair, man. I'll say that. So, it's very thick. It protects our scalp, But what? They'll straighten their hair out. They'll get these perms, dye it blonde. It's like, and then some of you can't stand white women, but yet you'll try to look like them. You'll try to act like them, While you're trying to act like, the women of their nation, some of their women are trying to act like you. It's madness. But at the same time, this is, again, the reality in which the world we're living in right now, man. And this is just one of the many things we have to suffer, being hated by the women of our own nation. It sucks. It does. But at the same time, we're not sweating it, because it comes with the territory. Us as a nation, we're down bad right now. Obviously some are doing better than others, but I mean, as a whole, man, we're down bad. We're at the bottom of the totem pole. We're the laughing stock, of the earth. Now, obviously, some of the curses are being lifted and they're being put on, our enemies. But at the same time, we're still suffering from these things, man, which is why we need to be delivered, And a lot of you women don't understand that your man, the Israelite man, the greatest men, not just man, because again, is the so-called black man is not the only Israelite man. The so-called Latino and Native American and Seminole Indian man as well. The Israelite man in general, man, we're the best men on this earth. But and yet you choose to go and deal with the oppressor. And it's not all of the women of our nation, but the ones that do, just understand that go right ahead. That's all I'm going to say, man. You want to deal with that man, go right ahead. And then since I mentioned it, I'll grab it. It's the book of Deuteronomy chapter 30 and verse 7. It says, "And the Lord thy power will put all these curses upon thine enemies, and on them that hate thee which persecuted thee. So, right, why get with the nation of people? Why get with the men of the nation that hate you the most? Like, it doesn't make any sense. They hate us. Of course, they hate the men, but again, they just look at you as objects, you know, that they can use and abuse and just get rid of, man. A lot of you tend to forget what they've done to you when they had us in captivity, which we're still in captivity. But I mean, you know, when they had us in chattel slavery, man, you know, some of those slave quarters, I seen a clip recently, you know, where they literally had houses, breeding houses, man, you know, where they would have a young girl, you know, just, man, you know, where they're pretty much, you know, keep her producing children, I would just say, because at the, you know, it's going to make me angry, and which it should, you know, but again, this is who you choose to deal with. You're choosing to deal with the devil when he's done very, very, very sick things to us, unspeakable things to us, things that were so unnecessary, but he didn't have to do, but he did anyway, you know, and this is who you run to. You think just the regular degular, you know, average Joe Edomite is going to change your life. You're not. I mean, he's not. Because again, they throw out these statistics at us as if, you know, black men are the problem of the earth, when in reality it's not. It's them. You know, they're the problem in the earth. They have the highest, you know, if I'm not mistaken, the highest domestic violence. You know, black men aren't the only men in general, man. You know, it happens. Not condoning it, but at the same time, it happens. You're going to have problems. You know, a man and a woman, they're going to have problems, man. But at the same time, what? Black men have that stigma that, you know, we're abusive. We beat on women, you know, which, you know, some of these niggas do. And when I say niggas, I mean the ones that ain't right, you know, and it ain't just limited to the tribe of Judah. I mean all the tribes, man, but especially Judah. You know, niggas do beat on women, you know, abuse them, you know, mentally, physically, or, you know, verbally as well, you know, just talking crazy to them. But what? They do that same thing. You know, Edomites do the same thing. They beat on their women, talk to them crazy, you know, and then what, man? They also do other things, you know. They're the highest serial killers, you know, PD files. You must forget they love to do that, man. You know, just like this whole Jeff Steen thing that's going on, you know, I said it like that on purpose, you know, just in case they try to take it down. But you have to understand that this nation of people have to go down, man. And this is who you want to deal with. You'd rather deal with them than to deal with the men of your own nation. You know, and this is how you know the scriptures are true, you know, because everything that's written, you know, is coming to pass, man. A lot of things have come to pass. You know, we still have prophecies, you know, that will come to pass. But, you know, the things, just Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter alone, man, you know, as far as our condition here in America, you know, not just in America, I would just say the Western Hemisphere, you know, in general, man, North, Central, and South America, man, just the condition of our people, you know. This is how you know the scriptures are true, you know. But, man, oh, man, y'all just don't get it. Y'all just don't get it. This man has a perpetual hatred for us as a nation, but and yet this is who you want to deal with. By all means, do your thing, man. Do y'all thing. We'll get you back, but just know that once we do, you know, get you back in the kingdom, you're going to have your heads down, man. For having an evil eye toward the men of your own nation. But I'll actually end it with this. This is the book of Ezekiel, chapter 35 and verse 5. And it says, because thou hast had a perpetual hatred and has shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword in the time of their calamity, and the time that their iniquity had an end. Therefore, as I live, saith the Lord Yahweh, excuse me, Slakia, I will prepare thee unto blood, and blood shall pursue thee. Sith thou hast not hated blood, even blood shall pursue thee. And right, man, you know, this man has a perpetual hatred for us, you know. So getting with him isn't going to change your life. It's not going to elevate your status. You're better off just getting with a man of your own nation and just thugging it out, man, till we get the hell out of here. But we know the majority of our women, you know, they're out of order. You know, they don't want to listen. You know, and again, just frankly, just like it says in Deuteronomy 28 and 56, man, you know, they hate us. And that's just something that we have to bear. You know, those of us that are in and even out of the truth, man, you know, dealing with our women hating us. But it's eventually all going to come to an end soon. This is why we need our Lord Yahweh Shai to come back and to restore order in the earth, you know. So, Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakak Kodash. I'd like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who I learned this truth from. And I'd like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. Till next time I say,